Okay. All right. Now, do you want to say a few words of introduction, or shall we just go straight into it, Francesco?
Yeah, let's go straight in, because we are 5 minutes late for some reason.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I mean, first of all, it would be useful to have actually a steer from you, Francesco, on this question that the paper, it seems to me to be very much about sustainability in the green sense. Is that what you want us to discuss? Or do you want us to discuss more sustainability in terms of stability, avoiding a euro crisis, etc.? I was not clear from your reply.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Yeah, I tried to articulate the point.
Sorry to interrupt. And by the way, can you resend the paper again, somebody, because I don't find it in my many files in the computer.
Okay.
So just thank you.
Okay. Okay. So let me start all over again. Yes, I try to articulate, but Costanza will do better than I. So let me do a little bit of an introduction to, first of all, the reason why we are here today, and actually the conference on the future, on the Europe of the future, as we renamed the entire project briefly, so that you are on board here. So, well, basically, the distinctiveness of the vision Siena Conference with an S, because we have also another big conference on global governance of climate change in Trento. This is something that should be quite obvious to the people that already attended the other edition. This is the 5th edition of the Siena Conference. It is a platform for problem setting and problem solving. So it's not an academic conference. It's very much meant to produce proposal. And I would say that after the European election, and hopefully the nominee of the head of the institution, we will have some difficult time for agenda setting. The other big distinctiveness of the conference is that we will have all 5 political foundations of the big 5 political parties. By the way, we also expect identity and democracy and the political foundation of the left to be at Siena. We will put together people from business, media, academics, with very much interdisciplinary approach and policymaker. We will have people from most member states, but also from outside. And again, it is a project. It's not just a conference, so it's supposed it starts before, like with these webinars that will frame the so-called problem setting groups. It will continue afterwards with the advocacy and the development of the ideas that will emerge in Pontignano. Now, going to very much the question that John was asking. Here there is a little bit of complementarity, let's say, between vision approach and the approach that Costanza and the group in Siena is following. Our initial, if you want, focus was broader, no? Is there a trade-off between financial stability and dynamism? The point number 1 says that Europe, the European Union, looks like it's today more stable, notwithstanding that the entire financial architecture is still way to be completed. We escaped the big, it was quite big, banking crisis in 2023 that sort of, hit quite badly the United States, not EU, Europe, and China. But still, if you look to these two evidence that, by the way, these three evidence that, by the way, comes from some cover story of the very magazine for which John is working, The Economist. If we consider, for instance, the 150 companies whose market value is higher than $100 billion US in the world, there are 43 that are less than 50 years old, and there is not even one of them which is from the EU. Basically, we had only SAP that made 50 a couple of years ago. There are 27 American, 10 are Chinese. So this looks like it's really, in terms of corporation, we are not exactly mobile. The same thing applies to individuals. Of the 10 richest individuals in Europe, only one founded its own company. We are talking about Bernard Arnault, who, by the way, is almost 80. Whereas in the States, all the 10 richest people founded their own companies. There is an issue of what I call here, I'm a little bit exaggerating, Marco, the magic of failure, the good side of failing. The best run country of the world, according again to The Economist, has been Greece for 2 years in a row, in 2023 and 2022. And Greece was the only EU country that technically failed. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marco. And now, going to very much what you're talking about, economic dynamism is also very much about transformation. And sustainability, the way Costanza, and I will now pass the word to Costanza and to students, sustainability is not just about being good, It's about transforming entire cities, societies. It's about innovation in a very big way. So it's about new companies, startups, and also extinction of some dinosaurs. And it is about risk management. So if you want, sustainability to us is an angle to see the very same question of economic dynamism, and therefore this potential trade-off to be managed between financial stability, making sure that we minimize the cost of dynamism, but still have dynamism enough to update our economic structure and everything to the 21st century. So this is, again, I don't know if you are happy with the question. Otherwise, Costanza will articulate better the point. Thank you so much.
Okay, Francesco. Now, Costanza, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. Let me introduce myself very quickly. I'm Costanza Consolandi. I'm professor of sustainable finance at the University of Siena and of sustainable and development finance at Lewis University. Yes, as Francesco said, the let's say the vision, let's say, topic that was slightly different, but because my expertise that might just hint in a bit of bias, we decided to expand the horizon of the topic, and this also allowed us to play in a sort of way with the word, with the term sustainable. Here, when we talk about sustainable, the term sustainable can be considered in two different ways. So traditional as a traditional meaning, when we talk about when something is sustainable, it means that it has the capacity to support or maintain itself over the long run, over the long term. On the other side, today, when we refer to sustainable, we refer to sustainability in the meaning of environmental and social sustainability, and so introducing environmental and social consideration. So adding this, as Francesco just said, adding the perspective of this latter meaning of sustainable and sustainability is just to add a different angle and probably to add complexity. But indeed, anytime we add sustainability in the picture, we add complexity in the picture. So the real question, so the basic research question, so is there a trade-off between dynamism and financial stability, or the relationship between economic dynamism and financial stability is the same? When we talk about economic dynamism, we consider also growth, and we consider also sustainable growth, but which can have, again, the dual meaning is sustainable in the long term and sustainable as inclusive growth, and that considers the environmental and social issues in the long term. So this is the reason why, besides the bias I can bring to the table, of course, because of my expertise and of my background, I think that this should, allow us to have a broader perspective on the topic. And at this point, what I could briefly say, and I do not want to use much time, given the fact that Giovanna and Barbara should leave us very, very quickly. I can see, of course, relationship between the relationship between the sustainable finance lens and economic dynamism, and at the same time with financial stability topic. Let me start with the latter one. The question is it true that applying a sustainable finance lens, sustainable finance that is, where, the EU is putting a lot of resources, a lot of effort in terms of regulation, in terms of framework, can it be a further, let's say, instrument to enhance financial stability? So this is the first question mark. Climate change is a systemic risk, which is exacerbating, the existent other systemic risk. Sustainable finance lens can, bring to the table the possibility to manage, to change the risk management approach, managing climate risk, and therefore reducing this, the exposure to such a risk, and therefore improving financial stability, question mark. In theory, yes.
I'm going to just cut in here, Costanza, because
Sure.
I can see you've got other points to make, because I do know that both Barbara and Giovanna have got to leave
Sure.
very quickly. Could I, first of all, perhaps go to Barbara and say very quickly what points you would like to raise, and then I would like to put the same question to Giovanna in the context of what we've heard so far from Francesco and Costanza.
Please, John, thank you. And stop me, because when I talk, when I start to talk, I do not stop. So thank you.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you very much, John, and thanks a lot, Constanza, for this thoughtful, putting together the things. I would immediately jump on the wagon.
Oh.
And growth. I know I'm at the airport. I'm sorry. It's is it better now?
Yes.
Is it better now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So, apologies. If my immediate thought is that we have to be very careful not putting all eggs in one basket. There is a huge difference between sustainability and long-lasting growth on the one hand, on the national level, but also on the level of firms and enterprises. And so the micro and macro level have to be looked at in a different way. And we are obviously putting both sides into one basket, because just a title, is there a trade-off between fiscal stability and dynamism? Dynamism is entrepreneurial, is the micro side, is the enterprise side, is the firm's side. And it's, there are no dynamic, even if we wish, there are no dynamic states. There are maybe dynamic business locations because you provide the right framework, giving low taxes, competition, all less regulation, all those things. But the dynamism that is being created comes always from the micro side, from the entrepreneurial side. And the fiscal stability term is always used in terms of nations, institutions, and that is something that we probably will have to detangle or detwist, and make sure that people are not being caught up, because I think we're on the same page when we say we want to create growth, we want to create solid, or we want to have a framework for dynamic enterprises who are innovative, who are productive, who create jobs, and who pay taxes in Europe. That's, I think, what we want. And so
yeah, I mean, it does raise the question of whether, in fact, these two things are counterposed. I mean, why should stability be the enemy of innovation? Well, I mean, maybe we are working towards recasting the question here. It's an interesting thought, Barbara. Can I just bring in Giovanna, because I know that she's also got to leave very, very soon. So Giovanna, issues that you would like to raise, having listened to what we've
Thank you, and apologies. I can be with you until 6:45. That's my deadline, so I have a little bit of time. But thank you very much. Thank you, Costanza, and thank you, Francesco, for inviting me, and thank you for chairing this. Just few starting points. First of all, I believe that what is at stake at the moment in Europe is obviously, given the new fiscal rules and the need for a final structure of the economic governance model of the European Union, I think that what is in question today is how we put together a new banking union, common fiscal capacities. And I have to say here immediately, I mean, I have been an advocate all along the last 15 years of the sort of set of rules that the European Union has adopted, the SFDR, the CSRD, the CSDDD. I mean, the whole structure of legislation and regulation that is governing the transition in the financial and in the entrepreneurial and on the market towards sustainability. But at the same time, and I really think that in a way, given the new political landscape in Europe that has emerged from the European elections, there is a risk that this whole structure could be at least weakened. Let's put it this way. But I have to say that if I look at what has happened in the European Union and in the US in terms of structure in the governance of the sustainability transition, which I totally agree with Francesco, is a transformation transition. It's an innovation transition. It's a risk management transition on a microeconomic level. Europe has indeed succeeded probably in the sort of defining the sticks, but it hasn't in defining the carrots. I want to be sort of, punchy on that, because if we see what, the kind of amount of investments that are needed for accelerating transition in a way that it does not bring a trade-off between dynamism and fiscal, financial stability, and sustainable transition. It needs a permanent common fiscal capacity. It needs common debt capacity, and it needs what has been done by the Biden administration with the IRA and with with a huge investment structure. So my first point here would be, I think there's a lot of leadership which has been acquired in Europe, leadership by doing, because if you think about it, looking at the ESG financials regulation and the SFDR and how it's working in Europe, Europe is really the only area of the world where ESG finance is regulated, and where we have reduced by a good amount greenwashing and social washing risks. So for me,
I'm going to may I just interrupt you for a moment, Giovanna?
Yeah, sure, please.
I know
please.
Barbara is going to go in about 2 minutes.
Yes, please. Let's get her back in. Yes,
you've got Barbara. That probably runs counter to your point. I mean, I'm just wondering whether, as I'm looking at it from the point of view of the moderator, whether you would in fact you can give me a very brief answer on this.
Can you please repeat? I didn't hear your starting point,
Oh,
John.
right.
Sorry.
I was going to say that, just having heard what Giovanna was saying, would you, and I'm looking at this from the point of view of a moderator, would you disagree with that position?
No, because we are undergoing some severe changes, and there will be changes, and no matter who will be the president of the next commission, I'm sure the various groups will have some serious battles going on, and then this will show the way that where Europe is heading, whether we really.
But do you see fiscal capacity as being essential to innovation in the light of what you were saying about it being a micro issue rather than a macro issue?
Yes, I don't want the EU to get that much involved in that. If we look, and I'm glad that Francesco brought up Greece. Greece was the sick man of Europe, and they were the bad guys. After, like, say, 5-6 years of structural reforms and great leadership, and they are the poster child now. They did a great job. They did it by themselves. I mean, of course, they had the help in 10 years ago, but 15 years ago. But now they solved.
They didn't see it as help at the time, did they?
Well, yes, exactly. But they got out of the mess themselves, by themselves. Yeah. They did structural reforms. So that's where we should go back to the real roots of what the European Union was about, providing a framework and a storyline, and not getting constantly interventions into our economies and into our societies. And that's
okay.
Not
that's
the
terrific.
Role that
I know you've got to escape right now for a flight, but I think that's going to be something that we can tease out in the debate. But there are two ways of looking at this, and go deeper into it. That's really useful to hear. Giovanna, I interrupted you. I was rude. Please do go back to the points that you were making before. But I wanted to make sure that we had got that contrast there.
No, I think the interesting thing is that I quite agree with her. It's with Barbara. I don't think there is a trade-off between these two models. I think we need the new fiscal rules that have been adopted in Europe just recently, I think are a quite convenient baseline to do what she just considered looking at Greece. So we don't need that, but we need strategic industrial policies in Europe. I think this is referred very clearly in the document, in the discussion document that was prepared by Vision. I think we need to have a a European vision over technology and industrial policies, and where we want to be competitive with the US and with China. So for me, the thing is, what I would not agree with is a backlash from the kind of regulatory structure that was introduced in the last legislature, European legislature. But I think what is missing and what is yet to come, rather than a downsizing of that, is a common strategic view of where innovation, transformation, and risk management, because we always forget, I think Costanza was mentioning this before, that dynamism needs to look at risk management as well. This is quite interesting now, if you think about it. I mean, Europe has adopted the double materiality approach, and we're always looking at just one side of it, which is the inward, outward, from inward to outward looking. Even in terms of single companies and sectors, we don't. I think we're not looking well enough and deeply enough on how climate change and even social exclusions are risk multipliers for the EU. I would also, consider it risk multipliers for the institutional structure of the EU, but definitely for the climate and for the social impacts that they can have. So I don't know if this is a strong enough point to, but I don't see it as a trade-off between fiscal ruling, fiscal how to say this in English, coherence on the national level, and at the same time defining a new 5 years of common industrial, strategic, technological, and innovation policies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm beginning to think that we really need a new title, Francesco. I think that this idea of contrasting the two is just not working. But maybe Marco has something to say on that subject.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Because I had a bit of troubles before.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Good. No, I mean, it is clear from what how the discussion has gone so far. I think we need a conceptual framework that is clear.
Yeah,
I don't find it so much in the current version of the paper. Now, I think there are different entryways in this discussion, but I think we have somehow to put a bit of conceptual order on this. So I see. Let me give you a couple of options on how to get to the issues. Okay.
yeah.
One, and it is closer to the current title of this paper. One can enter here through the return of trade-offs. We have, in a sense, for quite a while, lived in a world, basically with suspension of trade-offs. Now trade-offs are coming back with vengeance. So you have a macro financial trade-offs. So here the trade-offs: growth, inflation, financial stability. You have a sustainability trade-off: green, social, fiscal. And then you have an allocation trade-off, which is, let's say, efficiency, security. So long value chains, efficiency; shorter value chains, less efficient but more secure. So this is, let's say, is a way to enter into the, and you can assess the different trade-offs, to what extent they are there in the short term, maybe not in the medium term if you make the right choices, and the interplay between them. So this, I think, is one way of getting through that. A possible other way is to start from the assessment of the unsustainability of the current, let's say, growth or business model of Europe. So we have, and here, three elements also. We have our growth depends too much on the external demand. So we have an external dependence, which in this kind of world dominated by power logic is a vulnerability. Second, we are drifting away from the technological frontier. And third, we are in a demographic winter. So this is another way of looking at the things. I mean, there is a third way, and I give you all the menu. There is a third way you can say, okay, we are in a period of transitions. So we have three transitions. We have a green, we have a digital, and we have a social transition. Triple transition, I think, not only the double transition. So to what extent what we are discussing is contributing to this transition. A fourth one, a stop there, is to assess the typology of shocks that are likely to hit us in the future. Now, I think there are shocks which are likely to be different in terms of distributional effects compared to the past. So some who are now very much, or in the past were worried about risk reduction and risk responsibility, and more wary and negative on solidarity. In the future, they may be the first to actually ask for solidarity from the others. So typology of shocks, and winners and losers, or in certain types of shocks, all losers. Take the climate change. So somehow, I think we need to have a conceptual framework.
Yeah, I think you're right. And
so
I think
that is, I think we still have time, but somehow one has to choose a bit the entry point.
Yeah. I mean, I must say that, and here, I mean, we have to bring in Francesco, but maybe it's more for discussion afterwards. I would have thought the last two of your models were the ones which were most forward-looking, and we're talking about agenda setting and so on. Assessment of the shocks that are coming in the future and how we deal with them looks to me much more a kind of agenda setting type of and one that allows us to bring in sustainability much more easily. Similarly, though, I have to say the periods of transition, but that's rather about the present rather than the future. But Francesco, I saw your hand was up a moment ago. I don't know whether I've just solved the problem or
Can I say something very quick? Well, first of all, I'm very happy that we are recording the webinar here, because so that I then can re-listen to Marco lecture, because it's very interesting. He exaggerated with 4 options. Now, just one thing on the trade-off. I think that among very many other problems, if we look to the debate, also to what normal people, ordinary people, are saying in the street, it looks really very much like we are paralyzed by trade-off on everything. The debate has been for years about, for instance, the trade-off between stability and growth, Marco, to be more precise. Angela Merkel was for the stability, and whoever was the Italian Prime Minister was for growth, etc. And the same thing applies to the other big chunk of thinking that we are sort of trying to do for the conference. Democracy versus efficiency and blah blah blah. I am personally convinced that from an epistemologic point of view, to use a very complicated sort of word, the trade-offs are useful, exactly to say, look, the trade-off is fake. The trade-off does not exist. But it really probably forces us to put together opposing point of views, which is quite useful, no, today, where we may even end up to have some sort of flexible coalition between conservatives and socialists and unionists, to really unfrozen the debate and say, look, these trade-offs are relatively fake. So I think it's interesting.
You would go for the number one, would you?
Yeah, well, because I propose it. So.
Yeah. Okay. I know Giovanna's got to go very soon. So I don't. Yeah, a few comments from you.
Yeah, can I just step in with one line, because I really have to go.
Yeah.
I fully agree with Francesco. Maybe I would say that I don't know if they are fake, these trade-offs, but we need to overcome the polarization of these trade-offs. And maybe there's just one trade-off which is still on the table, which is short-termism or long-term vision. I think this is the real trade-off in terms of everything that we're talking about, in terms of the new fiscal rules, their adaptation in terms of a common and permanent fiscal capacity for transition, in terms of common debt, in terms of, well, also many of the things that have been put on the table by Mario. I mean, that was not the kind of agenda we were discussing, because if we were to discuss that agenda with the demographic issues and with all the other issues even there, but maybe just to put this as a conceptual contribution to this discussion, the real trade-off is, if we're looking at risk management, climate retroactive risk management in short term or long term, and that I'll finish here because I don't have enough time to go on. Thank you, and thank you for the occasion.
Thanks, John.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, I mean, I think that we have to do some thinking about how we frame the title of this, because otherwise I think there's the danger that this could become a very messy session with everybody talking about different things. And I think we need to get them absolutely focused on one concept. I mean, Giovanna's now given another one which arguably takes in quite a lot of what we've just been discussing. But I think we need to have a question that encapsulates all of this, and that question might be, how do we assess the type of shocks that the financial system is going to face in the future? Or it could be, as you say, are the trade-offs that we talk about fake, etc. Costanza, you had your hand up.
Yes, well, I did it by mistake, but it's fine. So no, but if I can, just a few comments. And first of all, I wanted to thank both Giovanna and Barbara that are not here, and thank Marco, of course. You're here for your insightful comments. One thing, and John, yes, we need to reframe and rephrase the title for sure. And as in the paper was a tentative title, this is absolutely a very preliminary draft, just, we could say, food for thought. This was the purpose of this paper. One thing that I must say, that trade-off is the trade-offs. It is a plural in the title because of what Marco said. So I mean, it's trade-offs. So there are more than one trade-off. I partially, as Giovanna, I partially agree with Francesco about the fact that trade-offs are indeed fake. I don't think that are, well, it is, they're not indeed fake. They are probably sometimes difficult to connect. They might be apparent, that might be apparent, and we can see and we can look at them as trade-offs, and they might be not. I agree with Giovanna that probably the element that can put together many, most of this discussion is long-term versus short-term, which is it is valid indeed at the micro level, at the company level, at the and at the macro level. So long-term view versus short-term view. And we didn't mention, and I didn't mention the financial markets angle, of course. I didn't, but one of the recent analysis, a recent survey, which is quite by Oliver Wyman, together with the European Banking Federation, together with the European Fund and Asset Management Association, and so far, analyzing the gap still existing and increasing between US and the EU, found in the lack of long-term investment in the EU, one of the main reasons. So why is that this lack in long-term investment, long-term funds in the EU? So it is a matter of regulation. It is a matter probably of some lacking regulation for financial markets, or excess regulation. So we also need to consider this part of regulation of financial markets, but for sure, also capital markets in the EU need to be considered. And again, long-term and short-term view. And just to close the circle, the other issue that Giovanna pointed out, it was related to sustainability entering into the picture here, and which has an impact on financial markets globally at the global financial market at the EU level, is of course the impact aspect of activities of the companies, and the measurement of impact of externalities. And here, but this is something it is my personal thought. So of course, when we talk about dynamism, and when we talk about capital market efficiency, we know that efficiency doesn't mean fairness. And so how can we have, and this is another trade-off, dynamism of financial stability, long-term and short-term, and capital market efficiency versus fairness. So it is another trade-off that in the long term, I think it is part of the bigger picture. And is it possible to increase efficiency of financial markets that increases, of course, economic dynamism and so far, but at the same time, increase fairness? My personal view is that we could say a sort of externalities optimized financial markets could link efficiency and fairness. But at this point, you need to go back at the micro level, at the company level. But at the same time, this cannot be done without a common fiscal, an adequate fiscal policy. So everything is interconnected. So I don't know what to choose among the titles that Marco suggested before.
Yeah, but you like the short-termism and long-termism, and
Yes.
I think what we've got to do is also, I saw that Francesco was also putting out a request for questions from the students. I mean, I think that young people will also say, there is only one long-term, or a lot of young people are going to say there is only one long-term issue, and that is climate change, because if the planet burns, then there have been no short-term preoccupations. So that would allow us to bring in that side of things and to talk also about sustainable finance in the way in which it is discussed at the end of the document that you prepared. I don't know whether your plea for questions, Francesco, resulted in any responses, but this might be a good moment to pitch those questions to our guests.
Sorry, John, do you want me to ask a question?
No, I'm asking whether your plea for questions from the students has resulted in any responses.
Well, people, I have a question. In fact, I mean, if I have really to, to push myself, a question to everybody, especially to students. And I'm sorry that Giovanni is not here. Talking about short-term versus long-term, I want to refer what Chiara, my daughter, she's almost 20 years old, was asking me with some desperation. She was asking to me, Dad, why did Smart, the Volkswagen, just decided to discontinue the production of the small smart car? You know, they were going basically they had almost decided to replace all diesel and gasoline car with the electric model. Now they will discontinue completely the small smart production, and they will go back to the 4 seats. Actually, they will not go back. They will introduce a new smart with 4 seats, which is a choice from Volkswagen, which is completely different from the one that we would expect if the only real thing that matters is climate change and sustainability. It's just the opposite, you know? So I do not have a precise question to a precise answer to the question that Chiara was putting forward, but I think that we also need, in fact, markets, not only financial markets, but industrial markets that have the metrics, that have the incentives, that have some mechanism to properly assess what really matters for all of us, because this people, if you have an answer to this behavior.
I see that Christian has got his hand up, and let me just ask Christian for his intervention, and then I'd like to bring in Marco again at the end for some thoughts.
Okay, good evening to everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you about these changes in Europe. And I'm gonna tell you what is my personal answer. I don't know if it's the right one, is the right reason for this, but I think that maybe we are speaking about Germany, that is one of the most developed countries about the industrial sector. And I think that they decided to stop the production of the electric car because speaking about the market to sell and to buy the electric car is not so developed now. We are speaking about a market that we must have theoretically in the future, but now it's not so common for us. For example, if we speak about how to deal with an electric car that is not in a perfect shape and we have to sell it or try to make in another way to because we can't use it. How can you deal with it? So you can do anything with this because an electric car, an electric engine, you cannot use it in another way. So you have to cut off the complete car. So I think it's better to make, first of all, trying to develop a circular economy for the electric engines before, and then start to develop the electric markets and the electric car. This is my own opinion. Sorry if it's not in line what you
No,
think.
but it's an answer to a question. So that takes us forward. Marco, perhaps you could give us some other thoughts. We've had various preferences expressed. As I said, mine, I thought your third and fourth ideas were very good. One, Francesco goes for the first. What is your own opinion? I mean, what do you think might crystallize this debate most easily out of this?
Okay, no, let me. The first point on Giovanna's short versus long term.
Yeah.
Which, I framed it in other discussions and papers as the level of the political discount rate. So you have
the level of, sorry, what was that again? The level of the political discount.
Political discount rate, which is the same thing that having a long, a long horizon, you have a low discount rate, or a very short horizon, you have a high. So that is the way one, and it is clear that in the political scenery, you tend to have a very high discount rate, which you value the short term much less in this. I think this is a good perspective to respond to the trade-offs and to lessen their stringency in a sense. So if you take a long-term horizon, I think some of these trade-offs, they become complementarities actually, not substitutability. So that is, but I think that is a good approach to look for the solution. I think not so much to frame the diagnosis in the first place. So I think in the first place, I would take combine some of the scenarios that I've indicated before. Then when you come from the diagnosis to highlighting the challenges and then come to the possible options for policy reactions, so the possible normative consequences that you draw in terms of what to do, then I think that perspective of short-term versus long-term is there. And I think one point here, which is important to, let's go back to history a moment. I mean, we have had in the recent history of European integration, not so recent is the Kohl-Mitterrand-Delors, end of the 1980s, which tackled successfully the Eurosclerosis arising, the double oil price shock of the 1970s. So it was a moment in which, with the fall of the Berlin Wall, they had long-term horizon. They responded by looking at the future, not the immediate concerns. Jump closer to today, response to COVID with Next Generation EU, sure. That they are also, for different reasons, you had Emmanuel Macron, Angela Merkel, Ursula von der Leyen, who had a long-term horizon for different reasons. I mean, one, because he was thinking about history, Angela Merkel, one, because he had 1.5 terms in front of him, Emmanuel Macron, and one, Ursula von der Leyen, had a long institutional term because he had just been appointed. So now, if you come from these examples here to today, I mean, there are some reasons of concern on the political side. So I think this is, so how do you push these bruised politicians to take a longer time. So now, if you go to the typology of shocks in the future, I think you can help them to understand that indeed what is going to come to us in this fraught global environment with a logical power where Europe, who continues to come from Venus, is not particularly equipped to deal with. You can say that unless they bring their acts together, then it's going to be very, very difficult to tackle these forthcoming shocks, which are going to come in waves.
Yeah, I mean, that would make actually, I'm just grasping for an overall title. And maybe this is more political than financial for your taste, Francesco, I don't know. But something along the lines of whether today's EU leaders can tackle the shocks that are coming at them, would allow us to get into sustainability on the one side, I mean, the purely green sense, but also to get into financial stability and innovation, dynamism as well. And, we could discuss, we give me a channel through which to ask questions. And I will ask very simple and stupid questions, and Marco and the others will give highly intelligent answers to them. But I think that would, what do you think?
What I think, or what, Costanza, what do you think? Costanza, you are muted.
Yes, but before I answer, I just wanted to take the opportunity to ask Marco a question, if I can. So you said that long-term versus short-term is a solution, let's say, more than that the framework and the analysis. Don't you think that indeed among all these trade-offs we mentioned, okay, long-term versus short-term is also a sort of common denominator? It is not just a solution. I do not want to say that it is a trade-off itself, but cannot be seen as, it's just a question. It's probably as, I mimicked John, I said another stupid question. It is
No, stupid questions always get intelligent answers.
I mean, this a direct question. No, I agree that one can list these the trade-offs which we believe are relevant, and then look as interpretation filter, pass it through the kaleidoscope of the long-term versus short-term. So I think that is I think I agree with that. It's a good way. And then I think the extra step, it would give you, let's say, some orientations on what to do about it, and that we come to the normative part.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just sketched out in the light of what Marco was saying earlier and what Francesco was saying, how can this is a possible title that would maybe help to focus minds. How can today's EU leaders, and the emphasis there being on today's, tackle the shocks that await the European economy? Or we could say the European financial system, or we could say European finance and industry. What do you think, Francesco?
I think that no, that is a very good suggestion. I would say that it is also 7:07, so I don't know how much everybody can still stay. I think if I can anticipate a little bit my personal conclusion is, well, number one, that I mean, it has been notwithstanding some technical problems at the beginning when Marco was complaining, there was complete silence. I think it has been a great meeting, because this is exactly what problem solving is about. Problem solving is about having the courage to ask a stupid question, to also attempt a stupid answer, so that, but with a very intelligent and frank debate, so that everybody of us, or at least this happened to me, can slightly or more than slightly change her or his own mind, you know. So we are learning from each other. I must say that I'm also very, very happy about John. I mean, John is a very special journalist, if I can say, but he is also very much part of the problem solving. So it's not just what a journalist is normally, but he's really like a problem solver. So, and this is absolutely great. I must say, on the discount rate, Marco, very much yes, but still, if we have to see to check the historical trend of interest rates, and therefore about discount rates, we are still in an age where discount rate is relatively low. It's not zero as it used to be for some years, until 2 years ago, basically. But it's still relatively low. And yet, you are very right. We are still heavily discounting investments in the future. And the big question is why, you know, interest rates are very low, and still we do not trust the future. And probably this is because not exactly about financial markets. It is probably because we cannot visualize the world of the future, no? The world which is sustainable, the world with electric cars, the world where it is inconceivable for Volkswagen to discontinue the production of the smart for 2 people and start the smart for 4 people with fueled with engine and diesel again. No, so it's probably at the time of Mitterrand and Delors, it was much clearer the kind of Europe we were processing towards, you know, which is probably still the case in less developed parts of the world, which can be, I don't know, Asian countries, and it's not clear to me whether this applies to the United States. So, Marco, on the discount rate, probably we need to find some qualification, but I very much agree with you that the title probably is not about the short-term versus the long-term sort of question, but that is a very, very, very good method and semantics to solve the problem. On the title, John, we need to talk with you, especially, and find the right title.
Okay. Just before we wrap up, maybe just a quick word or two from Marco. Any thoughts on that formulation of the title? Is that something you would be able to talk to with ease, or would it just cause confusion, do you think?
Look, okay, I think what would be useful maybe is that out of this discussion here, maybe Francesco or whatever, whoever has taken a bit of notes, maybe circulates some, I mean, your proposal, and maybe we can look at whether it's fine, it flies like that, or if we need some little variation on that. I mean, I think here I am I'm pretty sure that, okay, now Barbara has gone, and there is going to be an heterogeneity of opinions on what to do. Should we, however, manage somehow to come, if not to a full agreement, to a sort of you know, progressive consensus or gradual consensus, or at least partial consensus on the diagnosis, it would already be something. I mean, we are here at the beginning of the, you know, of the new institutional cycle. I mean, hopefully, I would hope that, I mean, I don't know if you have seen it, Martin Sambo of the Financial Times talks about the narcissism of the small differences. So I think amongst the pro-European parties, take left of center, right of center, at the end of the day, with the pressure of the extremes now, I mean, the differences that they have are probably not huge. So if we contribute to, you know, rally them around a similar diagnosis and then confront the possible policy options, I think would really be something good.
Yeah, in a way, they've shown some sign of that, haven't they, in the lead up to the nominations of the top jobs, though at the expense of angering your prime minister. Okay, Francesco, thank you for your kind words earlier.
Thanks a lot.
I don't know whether I have contributed in the slightest to the problem solving, but it's been a stimulating ride. I do think we need to talk further about the title to get everybody's minds focused. So I think that is the next step. So I think we probably need another discussion, but on smaller discussion. And Marco, thank you for hanging in here until the bitter end, whereas the two ladies have flown the coop, as we're saying in English. And look forward to seeing you in Siena.
I think no, maybe just an operational suggestion. I mean, based on this, I think there should be some reworking of the paper. No,
of course, no. We will absolutely do what you just said before. We will basically elaborate on the basis of the notes of what we said, and I mean, it's a problem solving. So really, very much. Thanks, Costanza, students, Marco, and John for to do this problem solving together. This is the very thing that we are trying to do since 2021. So we hopefully sooner or later will manage to do it. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No, I do thank you. Just to
Thank
you
you
as well.
Bye.
Thanks, John, and thank
Grazie,
Marco.
ciao.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Costanza.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, you.
Bye, thank you.